Hello, welcome back to our channel. Today we will explore one of the most intriguing mysteries currently unfolding in Salem, the sudden and suspicious disappearance of Tony DiMera from a Mediterranean cruise, and more importantly, who stands to gain the most if Tony has truly been kidnapped or replaced. This chilling incident has sent shockwaves through the DiMera family and raised countless questions about what's really happening behind the scenes in one of daytime television's most powerful dynasties. The vanishing act that shocked Salem. The story began when Irna DiMera placed a frantic phone call to E.J. DiMera from her cruise ship, reporting that her husband Tony had mysteriously vanished at the port of Corinth in Greece. According to the details that emerged, Tony had disembarked during a scheduled port stop in Athens to attend what was described as a critical business meeting, but when the ship prepared to depart, Tony was nowhere to be found. Anna's panic was palpable as she contacted the family, fearing the worst given the DiMera family's notorious history of kidnappings, betrayals, and elaborate schemes that have plagued them for generations. What made the situation even more peculiar was E.J.'s surprisingly casual response to the news. Seemed almost unconcerned, suggesting that Tony had probably just lost track of time or gotten caught up in business matters. This nonchalant attitude raised immediate red flags among family members and viewers alike, as it seemed completely out of character for E.J. to be so dismissive about a potential threat to his brother's safety. Hours later, another call came from Anna with an update that only deepened the mystery rather than resolving it. She claimed that Tony had been located and was perfectly safe, explaining that his business meeting had simply run longer than anticipated and poor cellular service in the area had prevented him from communicating his delay. Tony reportedly planned to rejoin the cruise at the next scheduled port, and everyone was told to stop worrying. However, this convenient explanation satisfied almost no one, especially those who have been watching Tony's increasingly strange behavior in recent months. The resolution felt far too neat, too convenient, and too suspiciously timed to be the complete truth. Many astute observers immediately began questioning whether the Tony who would be rejoining that cruise would actually be the real Tony DiMera, or whether something far more sinister had occurred during those missing hours in Greece. The Andre factor, a history of deception and identity theft. To understand why suspicions immediately turned toward the possibility of an impersonation or switch, we must examine the complicated and twisted history of Andre DiMera, Tony's ruthless cousin who shares his identical appearance. Andre's story is one of the most elaborate and long-running deceptions in Salem's history, beginning back in 1983 when Stefano DiMera brought his nephew to town with a specific and diabolical purpose. Because Tony refused to cooperate with Stefano's darker ambitions and criminal plans for the DiMera empire, Stefano decided he needed a more obedient and ruthless operative. The solution was chilling in its simplicity. Andre underwent extensive plastic surgery to make him look absolutely identical to Tony, creating a perfect duplicate who could replace his cousin whenever Stefano needed someone more willing to carry out questionable orders. Andre's first major impersonation scheme involved framing Roman Brady for the notorious Salem slasher murders by wearing a Roman mask while committing heinous crimes, including the murder of prostitute Daisy Hawkins in front of witnesses. During this elaborate plot, Andre actually held the real Tony prisoner in his own penthouse apartment, keeping him chained up while Andre lived Tony's life so convincingly that even those closest to Tony struggled to detect the difference. When Irna DiMera accidentally discovered Tony in prison during her investigation, Andre simply locked her up alongside him to maintain his cover. Though Andre was eventually exposed and seemingly killed when he fell into quicksand during a confrontation with Tony on a deserted island in 1984. The world of Salem has taught us that death is rarely permanent, especially for Demaras. What makes the current situation so alarming is that Andre has successfully pulled off Tony impersonations multiple times throughout their history. In fact, records indicate that Andre had stolen Tony's identity sometime after October 1985 and successfully posed as his cousin for an extended period without detection. If Andre managed to fool everyone once even multiple times, what would prevent him from doing it again, especially now when the stakes for control of Demera Enterprises have never been higher? The patterns of behavior, the facial expressions, and the sudden personality shifts that viewers have noticed in Tony over recent months all point toward the possibility that a switch may have already occurred long before the cruise incident. Behavioral red flags. When Tony stopped acting like Tony. For several months now, careful observers have noticed that something fundamental has been off about Tony Demera's personality and decision-making patterns. The most glaring change has been Tony's sudden and intense interest in not just preserving Demera Enterprises, but in actively running and controlling the company. Anyone familiar with Tony's history knows that while he has always been loyal to the Demera name, he has traditionally shown little interest in the day-to-day corporate power struggles that consume other family members. Tony has historically been more refined, more cultured, and more interested in art, travel, and his relationship with Anna than in boardroom battles and corporate maneuvering. Yet recently, this supposedly refined aristocrat has been displaying an almost obsessive determination to maintain control over Stefano's business empire, fighting battles he would have previously avoided. Even more telling have been the subtle changes in Tony's mannerisms and facial expressions, small details that Anna, who knows her husband better than anyone, should theoretically notice. Yet she apparently hasn't detected anything amiss, which either speaks to the incredible skill of a potential impersonator or suggests that Anna herself may be somehow complicit or compromised. The Tony viewers have been seeing lately exhibits a harder edge, a more calculating demeanor, and a willingness to engage in the kind of ruthless family politics that the real Tony has traditionally found distasteful. These aren't merely character development or natural evolution. They represent fundamental personality shifts that suggest we may have been watching Andre disguised as Tony for far longer than anyone realizes. The timing of these behavioral changes is particularly significant when examined alongside other mysterious developments within the Demera family. The corporate restructuring, the sudden CEO changes, the involvement of various family members in schemes and countermeasures of these elements create the perfect environment for an impersonation plot to thrive undetected. If Andre has indeed been playing Tony for months, then the crew's disappearance may not be the beginning of the scheme, but rather a critical midpoint where the real Tony is finally being moved, or where an even more elaborate phase of the plan is being implemented. The Greek connection. Why location matters. The specific location of Tony's disappearance carries its own significance and raises additional questions about who might be behind this potential kidnapping. Greece, particularly the areas around Athens and Corinth, has deep connections to the Kyriakis family, longtime rivals and occasional allies of the Demeras. Victor Kyriakis built his empire with roots in Greek organized crime and maintained extensive business and personal networks throughout the Mediterranean region. When a Demera vanishes in what amounts to Kyriakis territory, it's impossible not to consider whether this represents a power play between the two families, or whether Tony stumbled into something related to old Kyriakis business that he was never meant to discover. The port of Corinth is not some random tourist destination, but a strategic harbor with commercial and potentially criminal significance. If Tony was lured there under the pretense of a business meeting, the question becomes, business with whom, and concerning what? The Demera family has countless enemies, business rivals, and vengeful adversaries accumulated over decades of corporate manipulation and criminal enterprise. Was Tony deliberately targeted because someone wanted to remove him from the Salem power structure? Or did he accidentally witness something he wasn't supposed to see, making his elimination or replacement necessary? The lack of clear answers about the nature of this mysterious business meeting that supposedly detained Tony for hours is itself suspicious and suggests that the meeting may have been a trap from the very beginning. The mad science connection, Rolf Megan, and DiMera resurrection protocols. No discussion of potential DiMera schemes would be complete without considering the role of Dr. Wilhelm Rolf, the family's legendary mad scientist who has resurrected, manipulated, and transformed countless individuals over the decades. Dr. Rolf's history of creating doppelgangers, implanting false memories, developing mind control serums, and even bringing the dead back to life makes him the perfect suspect for orchestrating an elaborate Tony replacement scheme. If Rolf is involved and given the DiMera family's reliance on his expertise for their most elaborate plots, his involvement seems likely, then the possibilities become almost limitless and terrifying. Recent storylines have been dropping hints about secret laboratories and mysterious scientific experiments being conducted under E.J. DiMera's direction. E.J. has been revealed as having clandestine plans for University Hospital, including a hidden laboratory with sophisticated security systems and experiments that require strict non-disclosure agreements from employees. When Gwen Rizzi, E.J.'s secret investor in the hospital purchase, accidentally discovered blueprint plans for this secret lab, E.J. was forced to reveal that he has both public plans for the hospital's renovation and private plans for something far more sinister. E.J. has been actively recruiting staff for this hidden laboratory, including offering positions to individuals who are willing to follow orders without asking questions and sign extensive NDA letters to protect the secrecy of whatever research is being conducted there. The existence of this secret laboratory, combined with Tony's suspicious disappearance and behavioral changes, creates a disturbing picture of what might really be happening. Could the laboratory be where the real Tony is being held, perhaps undergoing Rolf's experimental procedures to transform him into something else entirely? Could Andre be using the facility to perfect his Tony impersonation through psychological conditioning, or even memory transfer technology that Rolf has developed? The mention of Megan Hathaway and the legendary secret Mediterranean layers that the DiMeras have maintained for decades adds another layer to this mystery, suggesting that whatever is happening to Tony may be occurring far from Salem, in one of these hidden facilities. The Stefano legacy, creating a new Phoenix. One of the most disturbing theories circulating among those analyzing this situation suggests that Tony's kidnapping and potential replacement may be part of an elaborate plan to essentially recreate Stefano DiMera himself. Stefano, the legendary Phoenix who seemingly could never be permanently killed, left a massive void in the DiMera family structure when he finally passed away. Various family members have tried to fill that void with varying degrees of success, but none have truly captured Stefano's unique combination of ruthlessness, strategic brilliance, and commanding presence. What if someone Inder, Rolf, or perhaps even EJ himself has decided that the solution is not to find someone who can be like Stefano, but to actually transform someone into a new version of the Phoenix? Tony, as Stefano's son or stepson, depending on which version of DiMera family history one accepts, possesses the bloodline, the name recognition, and the physical presence to serve as the foundation for such a transformation. If Andre kidnapped Tony months ago, as some evidence suggests, he could have been keeping him hidden specifically for this purpose, slowly conditioning him, breaking down his resistance, and reshaping his personality and memories to create someone who thinks and acts like Stefano. This would explain why the Tony who has been in Salem has been exhibiting such uncharacteristic behavior and such an intense focus on preserving and controlling Stefano's empire. It would also explain why EJ seemed so unconcerned about the crew's disappearance. If EJ is aware of or even involved in this transformation project, then he would know that Tony is not actually in danger, but rather is exactly where he's supposed to be. The timing of all these events in relation to days of our lives' milestone anniversary celebrations adds weight to this theory. The show's writers have been known to craft elaborate, commemorative storylines for significant anniversaries, often bringing back classic villains, resurrection plots, and family legacy stories. A plot involving the transformation of Tony into a new Stefano, potentially with Andre's involvement and Rolf's scientific expertise, would be exactly the kind of spectacular, interconnected storyline worthy of such a milestone. Analyzing the suspects, who benefits from Tony's disappearance. When investigating any crime or conspiracy, the fundamental question remains, who benefits? If Tony has indeed been kidnapped, replaced, or compromised, we must examine who gains advantage from his absence or from having a controllable duplicate in his place. The list of potential beneficiaries is extensive and troubling, spanning from within the DiMera family itself to external enemies who have waited years for an opportunity to strike at the dynasty. Andre DiMera stands as the most obvious suspect, given his history of impersonating Tony and his ruthless ambition. If Andre is somehow allevianed in Salem, death is often merely a temporary inconvenience or would have both the means and the motive to replace Tony. By living as Tony, Andre gains respectability, access to the family fortune and business, and the trust of Anna and other family members who would never willingly work with the disgraced Andre. He could manipulate DiMera Enterprises from within, settling old scores and pursuing agendas that the real Tony would never support. E.J. DiMera's suspicious behavior and his secret laboratory projects make him another compelling suspect. E.J. has always been ambitious and willing to bend moral boundaries to achieve his goals, much like his father Stefano. If E.J. is conducting experiments that require DiMera family members as subjects, or if he needs to eliminate obstacles to his control of the family business, having the real Tony in prison while a more controllable version operates in Salem would serve his purposes perfectly. His notably calm reaction to Anna's initial panic call becomes far more sinister when viewed through this lens. Other DiMera family members or rival branches of the family tree might also see Tony's removal as advantageous. The recent corporate upheavals, CEO changes, and power struggles within DiMera Enterprises have created an environment where removing or replacing a key player like Tony could shift the entire balance of power. Someone seeking to destabilize the current leadership structure or to advance their own claim to control the family business would have clear motives for orchestrating Tony's disappearance. External enemies of the DiMera family represent yet another category of suspects. The DiMeras have created countless adversaries over the decades through their criminal activities, business dealings, and personal vendettas. Any number of these enemies might see kidnapping or replacing Tony as a way to infiltrate the family, gather intelligence, or set up a longer-term revenge scheme. The Kyriakis connection to Greece adds weight to this theory, suggesting that perhaps old rivalries between the two families have reignited. The umbrella storyline, connecting all the pieces. What makes this situation particularly intriguing is how it connects to numerous other mysterious developments that have been unfolding in Salem over recent months. The writers have been carefully laying groundwork with seemingly disconnected plot threads that are now beginning to weave together into what appears to be a massive umbrella storyline. EJ's secret laboratory with its hidden chambers and mysterious experiments, the strange happenings at the DiMera mansion, the introduction of new characters with unclear motivations, the corporate battles over DiMera Enterprises' control, and now Tony's crew's disappearance all seem to be pieces of a much larger puzzle. The timing of Tony's disappearance in late October 2025, positioned just before what the show has been teasing as major revelations connected to their anniversary celebrations, strongly suggests this is not a standalone incident but rather a crucial turning point in a much larger narrative. The show's promotional materials and spoiler hints have been emphasizing themes of legacy, resurrection, and the return of classic DiMera scheming at its most elaborate. Tony's situation appears designed to serve as either the catalyst that exposes this larger conspiracy or as a key component of the conspiracy itself. The involvement of multiple family members in various schemes, the mysterious activities in EJ's laboratory, the references to Dr. Rolf and his capabilities, and the invocation of Stefano's memory and methods all point toward a storyline that will ultimately reveal how all these elements connect. If the theory about creating a new Stefano is correct, then EJ's lab experiments, Tony's transformation, and the various family power struggles are all aspects of a single master plan that honors the show's history while pushing the story forward into new territory. The scope of this potential storyline is enormous, touching virtually every corner of the DiMera family and their sphere of influence. It represents the kind of ambitious, multi-layered storytelling that daytime television can achieve when it fully commits to a vision, using its unique format of daily episodes to gradually reveal layers of conspiracy and connection that would be impossible in other media. For long-time viewers, seeing these classic elements impersonation, mad science, family betrayal, international intrigue woven together creates a sense of nostalgia while maintaining genuine suspense about how it will all ultimately resolve. As this mystery continues to unfold, the central questions remain tantalizingly unanswered. Is the real Tony DiMera still alive? And if so, where is he being held? Has Andre successfully assumed his cousin's identity once again? Or is something even more complex occurring? What role does EJ's secret laboratory play in all of this? And how do Dr. Rolf's capabilities factor into whatever transformation or manipulation is taking place? Most crucially, who ultimately benefits from Tony's disappearance? And what is the endgame of this elaborate scheme? The answers to these questions will likely reshape the DiMera family dynamics and set the stage for Salem's next chapter of intrigue, betrayal, and the eternal struggle for power that has defined this legendary family for generations.